This time on the Families Mattermost podcast.
This is the first time I've had to issue a disclaimer on one of my podcasts. You're about to listen to a pretty fantastic episode with Dr. Jody Carington, and she is amazing and it's wonderful, but there's a couple of bad words. So if you're listening in the minivan with the kids, I would say this one might be better for earbuds. Enjoy.
Every time Jen Dean speaks, I can see hope, knowledge, expertise, wisdom, and love.
When Jen Dean speaks about parenting, we make sure that we are there to listen because we know we will get valuable advice.
Families Matter Most with Jen Dean.
She doesn't just give skills for us to be better parents, but she teaches us how to reach our children's hearts. And at the end of the day, that's what truly matters.
Welcome, Dr. Jody Carington. I'm so excited you're here.
Jen friggin' Dean. Thank you for having me. I mean, honestly, what could be better than an Alberta-Saskatchewan collision on a podcast?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so grateful. I got to meet you in person when you came to Melfort. I love that you come everywhere. You speak everywhere. You just shake it up. I first got to know you from your book, Kids These Days. So in my work, I spend a lot of time working with families as a whole and trying to help the whole connection. And so that book was amazingly beautiful. And it was all about connection and attachment. And I love everything about it. And then to hear you speak and you're just like, it is what it is, girls. Come on.
Oh, I love it.
I think a lot of my listeners might actually say that you got them through COVID with your live mornings, man. Oh, that was rough.
It got me through COVID. I mean, I hear that a lot these days still. Like, I mean, this is what we're like 2 years out and it's like, oh my gosh, I love this. I love this. And I was like, listen, I love them because it was so much about, it gave me something to look forward to every morning, right? Like, let's just sink into the ridiculousness of it all. And I think that's all we need. Like, it is really the epitome of everybody needs. We all have the capacity to be phenomenal human beings, phenomenal parents. We all have the capacity for good. It's getting back there. Where do we ground ourselves when we feel like we're going to throat punch people or, you know, that we're shitty parents or because we all arrive there, that's not the question.
Yeah.
It's what do we do when, not if.
Yes, absolutely. Let's get rid of the shame. It's not if.
And I think this is the hardest season to parent in the history of the free world. And I'm sure every generation says that. But here's the interesting thing is that like we've never had this much access to how we should be doing things. And we've never had this much access to our children. So we never get a break. So they have a constant capacity to get us, which means our bodies keep the score. And so the cortisol is aware of this. Like our children can call us, can access us, you know, even if we go away, we wear our watches or we have our phone. And so there's never a break where we get to just put it down for a second.
Yes.
So the responsibility, as you know, of you know, parenting is conceived at conception. And even before then, when we're hoping and planning and dreaming and doing all those things. And it is often the good stuff that we hope and plan and dream about. It is often like the wishes. And, you know, when I ever ask a parent, what do you want for your children? You know, we all say this to some capacity. I just want them to be happy.
Yes.
And here's the fucking problem. Nobody, I don't know if we're allowed to swear here.
You're good. Well, we're in it now.
Okay.
I knew what I was getting.
Okay, good. But here's the issue that, you know, nobody's happy all the time.
Yeah.
And so when you wish for that as yourself, as a parent, when you wish for that for your child, we're going to be sorely disappointed because the biggest wish is for the capacity to navigate the hard stuff. I want our children, your children, to have a script for being bullied, for disappointment, for rejection, for a loss. And as a parent, you know, really, we don't have a lot of scripts for the disappointing moments. You know, I just set up this birthday party for you and you like hate me and I'm ruining your party. We don't talk a lot about, because that might have happened 48 hours ago, but
oh
my God, my 11-year-old is going to, I don't know. I say this all the time is that like I wrote a best-selling book. You're right. Kids These Days is pretty friggin' phenomenal. But if you watch me with my own children, you wouldn't buy the book.
Oh, I might disagree with you. Because you know when I fell in love with you and what you teach? You were doing a morning live and your kids came in the room in the middle of the live and you're like, what? Come on, just get ready. Just get ready. And you like shooed them out. And then your husband poked his head in and you were giving him that look that like, get out of here look. And then you turn to the camera and you're like, I'd like to punch him in the effing throat. And I was like, oh, my people. Like we
For sure.
all have that. You're relatable. You have all this knowledge. You know what to do, but yet we blow it all the time. And so I would gently offer you that no, the authenticity is what makes it so amazing.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think the point, because we have so much access, we're the first generation of parents with access to social media.
Yeah.
And so people ask me this as a child psychologist often, are we worried about kids and social media? Listen, I'm worried to some degree, but I'm not nearly as worried as I am about the big people in social media, because our kids are born with this. They have, they have a script for all of it. We don't. And so our access to what other parents are doing, what we should be doing, the constant inundation of team snap messages and, what this, all of the shit, our brains didn't grow up with.
Yes.
And so we do not have the capacity to separate, what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. And then the disconnect, we used to be able to, I think about in my parents' generation, even just one generation ago, right? You would have the girls over for coffee, or you would go out for a wine night, or you would do all those things in an effort to sort of be like, hey, is this happening with your babe? Is this happening with your babe?
Yes.
And now I make so many assumptions because I can watch all of my best friends on social media and they're doing that. Oh, it's not. Okay, never mind.
And it's perfect. Yeah.
I'm so busy. I'm so overwhelmed, not just with my children, because our moms were busy too, but they didn't have the added constant inundation. When you charge your phone by your bed, you go to bed with running your cortisol. Our parents didn't have that option. They went to bed, they either made out with their husband or read a book, which is completely different for your neurophysiology. Now we are inundated all the time. Now, and before many of us, the vast majority of your listeners, before we even get up in the morning, before we even pee, we're checking just to get ahead of the game, right? What's our email saying? Oh my God, who did this? I mean, I'm in Alberta. So, my agent, the vast majority of our business planning decisions happens out of Toronto. So my agent's been up for 2 hours.
Yes.
So I'm waking up to a couple of things that, he's ahead of the game on. And where is there the capacity to slow down? Because that's where we have access to the best parts of ourselves. That's where the good lives in all of us. And we have not accounted for, in this season of parenting, how much little access we are giving ourselves in terms of grace and, getting back to that best part.
So when parents tell you, and they tell me all the time, I'm overwhelmed, I'm in survival mode, I'm struggling just to get by, I feel like I'm treading water, which I always say, that was always dangerous. Treading water means you're slowly drowning. Like that was always an emergency. If you're in the ocean treading water, we have a problem already. But this is what parents are saying. And so I encourage them to do some work. The hard part is getting them to read your book, Feeling Seen, would be wonderful. But some of the time they're already at the bottom and they say, I just can't do one more thing. How do we help those parents?
You simply acknowledge it. Like, here's the problem with so many of us in this mental health space is we're not that good.
Yeah.
You can't undo or fix unless you truly sink into the fact that, yes, this is hard. Nobody can prepare us for what a soul-crushing adventure. It's also soul-filling.
Yes.
But we have lots of conversations about the soul-filling nature of parenthood. We don't have as many conversations around the soul-crushing. And oftentimes what parents need is just some acknowledgement that indeed you're not alone. And from that place, they will then have access to everything they know to be true, because it becomes very difficult to tell a parent what they should do with their children, because they know their babies better than you or me ever could.
Absolutely.
And so much of it is garnering that confidence again, that you are what your baby needs, because we spend a lot of time in this space hearing the messages, particularly from our children, that we aren't what they need, right? I hate you. I wish I had a different mom. Our mother-in-law is saying things like, well, we never did it that way, or I have never. And oftentimes in this place of supporting other women, other men, in this very unscripted place of parenting today, is to just really add, that really unadulterated place, safe place to land, and getting back to the best parts of you. Right? That's the truth. And I think sometimes we try really hard to say things like, try this, try this, try this. And we get met with yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. And when you hear the yes, but, what you really haven't done, what we really miss so much is really what it's like in this place to be heard and to slow down and feel seen. And we all desire to help people. We don't like it. The state of emotional dysregulation, when people are upset or sad or disconnected, we don't like being there, particularly when somebody we love is there or somebody who's paying us to get out of that place. What we want is to try to fix it. And the place we miss the most is just really saying these 3 words, tell me more. And when you can find people in your world that are brave enough to sink into those questions instead of coming up with all of the things and the ways that you should, could, would be doing things, you have access to it. You have access to all the best parts of you. You know what to do.
So what I'm hearing you say is to slow down and to be okay to feel it, to find, maybe that's step 1, is to get back to the best parts of you, is to actually confront maybe the ugly parts.
Getting back to the best parts of you has nothing to do with your children. And I think that, people will say this to me all the time, and we're worried about our children. We're going through a divorce and we're worried about, is it affecting them? They're cutting, they're, so much access to social media. Like, I mean, I was 10 years on a locked psychiatric inpatient unit for kids, and it was the best part of my career. Because oftentimes what happens is we would have these really, really, really struggling babies, hitters, kickers, biters, ones that tell you to fuck off, the ones that have spent some time in juvie, or the ones that we just can't get through because they're cutting and their hoodies up and their hair's down. And we would ask all the time this question, what is wrong with this one? What is wrong with this one? And we would never ask, what happened to this one?
What happened?
This is true of parents, right? We always want to ask, what is wrong? What are you doing wrong? Are you, putting them to bed too early, too late? Are you giving them too much screen time? Are they blah, 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 blah? This is such bullshit. It really comes down to this idea of like, how are you?
Yeah.
Right? How are you feeling about this unscripted place where you have the biggest responsibility of your life? And I think so many times it's that space of like, the kids it's okay. This should be hard. They should get bullied. They should be vaping. They should be pushing all the limits. Kids don't know where the boundaries are unless they push up against them. And if you have somebody who's compliant all the time using their words, or if they look really good for other people but not for you, you're doing something right. Because the chaos is necessary to learn the calm. And I would much rather them have the chaos in the safety of our parenting relationship than trying to be chaotic in this world where I don't know where the safety nets are.
I would agree. I think for me, in my space, I typically get called in because the kids, the kids, they're terrible. They don't listen. They're tantrums, they're angry, all of the things. But you're absolutely right. I get in there and it's like I sneak in to be like, hey, how are you? How are you handling this? This is all typical kid behavior. We can work on all of this, but like, how are you doing? And it's so funny because I will visibly see parents, moms and dads, both kind of stop, deer in the headlight, and then they just kind of exhale and say, oh, this sucks.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting place about this coaching world is that there is so much room to just have somebody in your corner that says, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is supposed to be hard and it's okay. And I think what's so interesting is that we spend very little time there. People will say to me all the time, I need you to see my kid. Can you assess my kid? Can you do this? And I would say all the time, oh my God, I would love to see your baby. I'd love to assess your kid, but I need to see you too. And then people say to me all the time, what? Do you think I'm the problem? And I'm always like, no.
But yes.
You're the problem. You're the solution. So if I provide gold standard treatment to your babies, so you bring them to my office for $250 an hour once a week, we play some Uno, draw some pictures. I figure out making sure we're not missing any major traumas. It is a waste of time if I send it back to people who then haven't sort of understood the system in which behaviors occur. And we do this all the time. We screw this up in the education system all the time, right? We give IPPs to kids that look behavioral, right? You make a good choice, I reward you. You don't make a good choice, I punish you. That's ridiculous. How they are responded to in the environment means it's okay to make mistakes here. It's not okay to hurt and be unkind to people, but it's not if I'm going to address it, it's when. And I think that's really the interesting thing where I think this world of gentle parenting gets so fucked up because it's not about just letting everything go.
Right.
The new rules of the game for me sound like this: be kind and don't tolerate bullshit in that order.
Yes, I think of it as respectful, but that's going both ways. Like the same way I would talk to a stranger off the street, the same way I would talk to a coworker is how I try to talk to my kids. Now, do I get it wrong? Yes, a lot. And when I do, hopefully I do my best to repair and to go to them and say, okay, let's try this again.
I think this is the critical piece, right? Like, I think it's not about getting it right all the time, because you won't.
Yeah.
Like, you're not that good. I'm not that good. The people that we, and just hearing that, I think, is one of the places that we don't say really enough. Like, we won't get it right all the time. In fact, to have a secure attachment with your children, the data would suggest that at least you can screw this shit up at least 70% of the time. You only really need to get it right 30% of the time in order for babies to have a secure attachment. And I think, yeah, I know, isn't that
30%. Let's lower the bar.
You're crushing it. And I think that's the problem, right? Is that we're like, oh my God, we screwed this up, or we said this, or I just had a beautiful call with a couple the other day, and he was like, I think I fucked him up. He's 8. And I was like, okay, babe, look at my eyes. Okay. What's the best part about this kid? Tell me what he's like when it's just you and him going for a drive. Oh, he's amazing. Okay. What is he like when he's, having a sleepover? Would you send him to my house for a sleepover? Would he be respectful and kind? Oh yeah. Like, he better be. Like, I'm pretty sure he could. Done.
Yeah.
The only way you learn how to make good choices, how you do all of those things is you screw up and then somebody walks you through it. The truth of the matter is, we're going to screw up many times. Many of us were raised in a generation where big people didn't apologize to kids. And it is probably the single most important intervention. Now, in one generation ago, they also had much more access to watching how you repair, because we lived in smaller houses. We were in smaller classrooms. We spent more one-on-one time with grandparents.
Yes.
So we watched a lot more. Now it is estimated that our great-grandparents looked at their children 72% more of the time than we look at our babies. So teaching on purpose, things like repair, things like, okay, come back in and sit down. Mommy is so sorry. I was so frustrated, and I had a big, long, hard day today, and that's not your fault. So I'm sorry for yelling. Now, one of the greatest important messages in this idea of repairing means that you have to erase the word but, because but erases the apology.
Oh,
how many times we do this? Like, if you think about this with your partner, like, I'm so sorry I was a bitch yesterday. I was tired, and like, I had this big thing at work. But if you would just clean up your shit, then I wouldn't have to, And so it erases the apology.
yeah. Apology's gone. Negated. Yeah.
So
no but.
If you don't want your children to do that, you can't give away something you've never received. So when I look at, my son, for example, this morning, Mommy's so sorry. Look at my eyes. I'm so sorry. This was such a bad choice for Mom to be able to say those words this morning. I wish I could take it back, and I know I can't, but I need you to know I'm really sorry. And oftentimes, my daughter the spicy one will be like, you should be. And then that's the hard part, right? Because then you're like, oh, well, good. So you're like, you're right. I should be. I need to do better. Did you know that I've never parented an 11-year-old girl before? Did you know that I'm new here? I say that all the time. Did you know that I'm new here? Like, how am I doing? Give me some feedback, right? How am I doing in the area of 11-year-old girls? Because I feel like sometimes it's not very good. And she'd be like, yeah, and it's so interesting. The capacity to engage in those conversations are necessary now. And we don't have a script for it because our parents didn't necessarily need, want, know how to do that. But on purpose, that is becoming much more important because of the amount of time we don't spend directly with our children.
So you talk about repair, you talk about getting back to the best parts of you, taking care of us so that we can give away something that hopefully, right? If we don't have it, we can't give it away. Dr. Jody, do you have some practices, some rules for yourself that help you try and, find that place, some rhythm even to help you get back to that best parts of you?
Yes, I have so many. But the one that I think sticks out the most for me, and this is the most powerful one, that I need all of you who's listening to do this right now. Just drop your shoulders. Put all the expectations down. Wiggle your toes. Drop your tongue from the roof of your mouth. Drop your jaw, because this is the most primitive response to stress. We slam and we do it all the time. We don't even know it. So when we spend our whole day, particularly if you work in any capacity, if you serve other humans, if you volunteer, if you are you're caring for other people during the run of the day, oftentimes our bodies are in this heightened state, right? What do we have to do next? And then in our free time, we're checking social media. And then before we go to bed, we try to relax. We watch some fucking Dateline murder show. And there's no capacity for us to put these down. We don't have access to the best parts of our parenting ability there. And so when I have like some knockdown shoot 'em outs with my children, or my husband and I are going back and forth, it's like, you take them, you take. And when we, sort of, I'm like, this last day with Livy, when I was, I knew I screwed up. So I got out and shut the door, and I was like, fine, you want me out? Good, cool. Mm-hmm. Take a deep breath, drop my shoulders, make a snack, go back up to the room. I'm so sorry, hon. This was a rough start to our morning. Do you think we can start over again? No. I feel this. Okay. I'm like, I'm fucking trying. Are you kidding me right now? The answer to it all for me is to just drop my shoulders again and again and again. She is 11. She's doing the best she can with what she has. And unless I walk her home through this, I will always be the one who needs to be the walker. Unfair, not cool. That's our responsibility as parents. Even when she's 27, she will require me to be as regulated as possible. Yes. And the only way we get back to this place of emotional regulation, even when it feels unfair, they're being asinine, the stuff that's coming out of their mouth reminds us of their drunk ex-brother-in-laws, like obviously the jeans are zip, right? All of those things are like, this baby is 5 or 11 or 22, and what they need from me in this moment is to walk them through it. Then I will address the behavior. So once we had the snack and got the lid back on, and I just said, buddy, when you yell across the whole house that you hate mommy, it is so hard for us to get through our morning. I know, I'm sorry, I was just so frustrated. Okay, so next time, right, when you get so frustrated, say these words to me instead. I'm frustrated. Can we try that? Now, we might have to do that 877,000 times, which
Absolutely.
is why the parenting gig is exhausting, right? Because they don't learn to walk on one go. Right? They fall, they get up, they fall, they get up. This idea of creating neural pathways is the same when it talks to a physical skill, when we're talking about a physical skill, as it is about an emotional skill. Mm-hmm. So they have to try this again and again and again and again. And we feel like, didn't we just come here? We just talked about apologizing. We just got here. I mean, if you said that during like their attempts to learn to walk for 6 months, you'd be like, oh, we had it yesterday.
Come on, again? You fell again? How many times are you going to fall?
Right? Like, isn't this silly? But it's the same, it's the same process of teaching those skills. And oftentimes it just gets so personal. They know what to say to get us very present.
Oh,
and
yes,
this is not uncommon, right? You're like, Kate, be quiet. And they're like, shh, mom. And you're like, just a second, mom. And then if you don't listen, then they throw a punch their sister or whatever, right? Because they know when I turn it up higher and higher, I'm going to get unequivocally your connection. And if you start to say things like, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to kill you, or all of those asinine things that people are really even scared to talk about in a therapeutic setting because they don't want me to think that they're crazy or that their child's crazy, is so common. Because oftentimes we have to turn it up that loud in this very noisy world to be heard.
I love the drop the shoulders. I think that's good. I don't use it enough. Whenever you say it, like every time you've said it, I'm like, oh yeah. It's so good. For me, I get stuck in my own head. So if my kids are being butts, I'll start thinking horrible things like, this isn't going to work. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a failure as a mom. I think they're a sociopath. They're going to be a leader in jail. They're going to have a horrible life. The brothers aren't going to get along. We're not going to have family Christmas. I'm going to be all alone. And then, right. And then I'm a mess. But for me, I want to add the drop the shoulders 100%. But I force myself to say, is this typical kid behavior? And that helps me. Is this typical kid behavior? And if the answer is no, then I reach out. Okay, we got to book in. We need an expert. But if the answer is yes, this is typical kid behavior, we're in the realm of typical, then okay, this is a problem to solve. I can handle it.
So funny. And, I think the hard part with that is that it's even hard sometimes these days to know what is typical kid behavior.
True.
And because, our kids have never had this much access to social media. Should they be saying words like, I don't know, boobs when they're 6? Like, I don't know if this is typical. Like, so much of the time, the consultation work that you do, and certainly when I would do an assessment, it's really about just trying to get that sense of, is this typical kid behavior? Right. And so I think so much of the time it isn't about like bringing your kid into therapy as much as it is having that consultation place of how am I doing?
Yeah.
What like should this be, so many questions about how much screen time is acceptable,
Yes.
how much, like,
Yes.
there's no answer to that. And other than, the more face-to-face time that you can have with your children, they will unequivocally be better for it. But I also understand in this very busy world, often of single parenthood or dual income households or, blended families, I want you to do the best you can with what you got.
Yeah.
It is much more about quality than it is about quantity. My kid only had 30 seconds on the iPad. That's all he's allowed. Well, and the rest of the time you're on your fucking devices and he's sitting there like rolling around, throw punching his sister. Not helpful.
Yeah.
Compared to the 6 hours that this kid every day has after practice because mom's working, there's no dad or whatever the deal is. But I come home, we have a game night. And, before we go to bed, we talk about gratitude and his feelings for the day. Fucking brilliant. Like one's not better than the other. So much about this is we feel so incompetent often in parenting in this generation with no script that we just stay where we feel more confident, which is typically sunk into our work or Netflix.
I have one more question for you, and then I want to direct listeners to courses and workshops where they can get more of you in their life. Mental load. It's really popular. It's a buzzword on social media, just the mental load, particularly, of course, of mothers. Any thoughts on that? Any quick tips? Like you've probably seen lots of little videos. I know I've had some people mad at me on Instagram for some things I've posted about the mental load that we carry as moms. So what do you think about it?
We are wired to do hard things. Brene Brown, Glennon Doyle, like there's so many people have said we are wired to do hard things. There are mamas right now in Gaza living in a bomb shelter, navigating 6 children. We are wired to do hard things. We were just never meant to do any of this alone. When we get overwhelmed, we tend to go inside. And it's a very, understandable biologically protective place where we do like this, huh?
Yes.
And what matters the most, I think, in this season is when we drop our shoulders and know that so many people, there's a loneliness epidemic in this world. So many people need you, want you to connect to them, to seek connection with them and for them, to have these conversations, to jump into platforms where you feel the safety and being seen as important, where people are fucking up and figuring it out. Instead of those places where we're always comparing to, the next perfect thing and everybody got their workout in and their drinks in, and then they made out with their husband for 25 minutes and drank all the fucking collagen. All right. Now, some people got it together. I haven't met them yet.
No.
I don't know those ones. And when you do often some things right, that's cool. Let's celebrate it together. And when we fall down, let's pick each other up. And I think really giving yourself some grace in that place matters the most in this season, because we just really aren't meant to do any of this alone, but we're wired for all of it.
So listening right now, everyone that's listening to this podcast, as soon as we're done and we're wrapping up right away, I want you to reach out. I want you to text some people. I want you to message, send some voice notes, call some people, check in on your people. And how about, yes, let's keep sending the funny memes. Let's do that for sure. But also, can we add to it the face-to-face human connection of how are you? How are you doing? Check on your people. I think that's a really great message. We're all wired for connection. Thank you so much, Jody. I would like everyone to go to Dr. Jody Carington's website. Her book, Feeling Seen, is all about this, all about reconnecting. But she's got a workshop. I know books are awesome, but I feel like we are so busy these days. We almost need that accountability. Okay, I need the videos. I need Jody to actually walk me through to make sure that I'm spending the time on this book. So they need your workshop, don't they?
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, I don't know if they do because so many of us are crushing it. But if you need it, we have one called Kids These Days that I walk you through that book. And then Feeling Seen is the new course that I just put out. That's really, we often say to each other, are you doing the work? Are you doing the work? And I really wanted a place where people could land where they did the work with me. So it's, it's a few videos slammed together and I make you think about some things and just get those shoulders down.
We're going to put a link to that workshop and the kids these days and her books. We're going to have all of those links in the show notes for this podcast. Dr. Jody, thank you so much. I'm so grateful we have you. And you're Canadian, and we get to see you from time to time in Saskatchewan. Thank you so much for joining this podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jen. You're doing amazing work. We need more of you.
Thanks for listening to the Families Matter Most podcast with Jen Dean, part of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network. If you are interested in contacting Jen for one-on-one parent coaching, for speaking engagements, or just to get a little more information, please visit our website, familiesmattermost.com.
I know, parenting is so hard, but really you have to focus on two things to get it right. What are some of the most challenging issues you deal with at home? You feel stretched. You can't handle one more thing going wrong. The kids aren't listening. They're talking back. They're being rude and disrespectful to you, to each other. There's fighting. There's lying, swearing. We're raising our voices. This is not fun. You might even say, they only listen when I yell. You feel stressed, overwhelmed. Hey, what percentage of the problem is you overreacting, not having patience, too busy, too tired? And what percentage of the problem is the kids? Is it 50-50? Does it lean more to the side of you have things to work on? I'm Jen Dean, a family coach, and the good news is that I can help with both. I'm a mom in the trenches with 3 kids who weren't always easy to raise. I've been teaching parenting courses for parents with kids who struggle with focus and distraction for over a decade, and I can help you work on the kids' negative behaviors and develop positive character. I'm also a certified life coach, personal trainer, and nutrition coach. I can help you deal with stress, develop healthy habits, reach your own goals. I can show you how to be more positive, how to stop yelling, and silence that negative voice in your head. Being a great mom that reaches the heart of her kids only requires 2 things. 1, learn how to deal with your emotions and stay calm. And 2, teach your kids how to deal with their big feelings and stay calm. That's all you have to do. I know, these are big buckets. Yes, there's lots to unpack here. For you to learn how to deal with your own emotions and stay calm, it means you have to learn how to talk to yourself, how to take care of yourself so you're not always on empty, what to do in the midst of tantrums. You need to learn what to do when you're stressed, when the kids are upset. You need to teach your kids how to handle their emotions, not just push them through and not push them away. Anger, sadness. You need to teach your kids how to handle a no answer and how to respond to instructions. Basically, you have to teach your kids to do things they don't want to do. This will help them to develop character and grow in kindness. But if you can focus on these 2 things, how to deal with your emotions and how to help your kids deal with theirs, you'll feel great about yourself and you'll have a great relationship with the kids. No more mom guilt. You can feel completely present at home or at work and feel like, you know what? My kids aren't perfect, but they're awesome and I'm a good mom. Families Matter Most, my company, has live classes. We have private coaching. We have small group classes. We have on-demand classes. So let's have a strategy call and talk about what the next step for you should be. You're not alone. You're not alone. Let me help you. Let me walk you home. Book a strategy call and let's talk about it.